Hello, Qatar. I have someone here who would like to say something to you.
No, we will not do any more business with you or with your family or with your extended family or with your administration members' families until Israel apologizes for...
Well, as it happens... Come on, do it.
Hello, it's Netanyahu here.
Come on, do it.
Look, I'm sorry. You were so offended when we bombed you.
I don't think that's an apology.
What do you know about apologies, Donald?
That they usually cost a lot of money. But this isn't about me. Can you just do it?
Okay, I'm very sorry that you were hiding territory of your country directly under members of the Hamas.
Ugh.
This is not going the way you thought it would.
Look, baby, I ask almost nothing of you, okay? And by almost nothing, I mean basically nothing. So could you please just do this one thing very strongly?
Okay, I'm sorry we bombed you. And I swear we'll never ever do something like that again.
Wow, that was great.
Is he crossing his fingers?
What? Please, baby would never do something like that behind my back. But, baby!
Public
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as Voxtradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, Robert Unanue, former owner and CEO of Goya Foods, now acting to combat trafficking. Billy Atwell from AFPI will be here talking about the conservative movement post Charlie Kirk. Meaghan Mobbs from the Independent Women's Forum on how women are impacted by the peace accord in the Middle East. Sketch comedy from the puppet regime, Al Berry and the Babylon Bee, and Max McNow in the spotlight. And now from Times Square, where even in these hard times, even during Sombrero shutdown, his studio and services are still considered essential. Here's the cover. Are we?
Are we still considered essential? I mean, the government doesn't pay us. So, I mean, heck, Carrie Pagian doesn't pay us. So yeah. But what does us being essential have to do? Oh, okay. It doesn't. That's the point of the bit. Welcome to the weekend, friends. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. We have got an incredibly important show for you today. I cannot tell you just how good this show is going to be. Bob Unanue, who is the CEO. No, he's not anymore the CEO. He was the CEO. He's no longer the CEO of the Goya Foods. You like the Goya beans, the Goya adobe, the Goya coconut milk, all the Goya good stuff. That's him. He's the guy. He's going to be here. We're going to talk about Americans combating trafficking, which is his brand new assignment from the America First Family Policy Institute, and he's really revved up on this. And when Bob Unanue gets revved up, baby, it goes. He's a little low key, but we're gonna see it today. He goes. I love Bob. He's a great guy. A little bit later on, Billy Atwell is going to be with us. He's brand new to the AFPI family, but I want to ask him about this because Charlie Kirk, our colleague and in many ways a voice of prophecy to the nation, and we at Salem benefited from his presence and completely appreciate everything that he not only accomplished but is now by legacy leaving for another generation to accomplish. But he's made so much headway. What does that all mean to where that movement goes and how the America First movement specifically goes? Billy Atwell, I'm going to ask him about that when he gets here. Because he's the new spokesperson for AFPI. And then in the next hour, we've got a little peace situation going on. And explain this to me, please. The president has solved 7 minor wars, some of them that have lasted for more than 100 years, but 7 of them he has solved. And we are in the crevice of the agreement being signed and the hostages being released and the demilitarization of Hamas, that's one of the two big ones that's been going on. And basically, Trump, without Trump, you don't get Iran neutralized. Without Trump, you don't get the 20-point plan. Without Trump, you don't get Netanyahu apologizing to the Qataris for, bombing their people. You don't get a lot of the things that happened here if you don't have Trump in the mix. How did they name this from Venezuela? If you say her name really quick, it sounds like a little kid's rhyme. But how did they name her? How did they name her the Venezuelan opposition? Who is she? What has she done? Has she even brought peace to Venezuela? I know that she's speaking truth to power and, all that stuff. That's good. But the president has solved 8 wars, 7 small ones, 1 big one, and he's got 1 more to go. If he gets that done and they don't give it to him next year, there's going to be an all-out revolt. Pretty soon, nobody's going to think that the Nobel Prize means anything anymore. You watch. You mark my word. I'm going to write that down. Yeah, pretty soon. That's pretty soon. It's not going to mean anything anymore. So anyway, they announced it's the Venezuelan opposition leader. Girl power going on there. And here's the other thing. Meaghan Mobbs is going to stop by. Meaghan Mobbs. I'm gonna mess that up every time I do it today, I bet. Anyway, Meaghan Mobbs is going to be here from the Independent Women's Forum. She's a West Point graduate. She retired from the military with honors. She has her PhD now. Dr. Meaghan Mobbs is going to be here to talk about the impact of that peace agreement, not only on the women involved, but on the women of the world. And she's just published a brand new report that we're going to get into called Women in the West. And you kind of see things going in opposite directions. And that's what I'm going to leave you with for now. But we'll get into that before we're done. Plus, we've got some good sketch comedy. You just saw The Puppet Regime. Always good stuff. Al Berry, the Babylon Bee, is back with fresh sketches. We've also got Max McNown, heartthrobbing country music, with 2 new songs this week. So it's going to be huge new music spotlight as well. So I hope that you'll keep it right there. I'm also very hopeful that the Sombrero Saturday theme will either really take off or that eventually these yahoos that are running this shutdown will eventually realize that it's not helping them. Have you seen the public polling on this? Schumer and Jeffries and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who, if I were her agent, what I would be pushing for is a brand new line of sombreros, the AOC sombrero for the sombrero shutdown. Because you have the sombrero and then you have the sombrero shutdown sombrero that AOC. So she could be the face for the sombreros of the sombrero shutdown. But here we are on our second Sombrero Saturday, and we didn't even use the graphics this week. What's with that? We worked so hard on that last week. You thought it was going to be done. I got you. All right. Well, here's the thing. It's not, and now we're starting to get into some real pain. Now the military are going to miss at least their first paycheck. Now you've got people that are really starting to feel the impetus of this. Mr. Schumer, Mr. Jeffries, Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, Lady Sombrero, you need to now, as soon as possible, bring this to a close. That's what you need to do right now. Right now, you need to do this. Don't let it bleed over another week. That's not worth it. Okay, I've got one last little thing I wrote about at Town Hall yesterday. If you're not reading me at townhall.com every day, you can do it 2 ways. You can go to thatkevinshow.com and read every one of the columns. They're always populating to the top of the page, so you always get the newest one first. Or you can go over to Town Hall and read it there as well. But either way, you'll get the same. You get the same piece. But here's the thing. You know this girl, this Taylor Swift girl. She's kind of good. She's kind of famous, well known, kind of a good songwriter, sort of. People say she's pretty good, pretty talented. Say if she keeps at it, she might actually, have a big thing sometime. I'm kidding, of course. My favorite song on her new album, the clean version. The clean version of the album. Buy that one. Don't buy the other one. Buy the clean version for your kids. But the wish list song is all about having a family and how important that is. And I was just thinking this through this last week. I wonder if Charlie was still with us, if he wouldn't congratulate her on the message of that song. Because she's championing marriage and family and making a whole bunch of kids that look just like him. And that's hopefully what her life is going to be about soon. But anyway, go and read that. That's worth it, too. Kevin McCullough, we've got a big show for you. Max McNown in the spotlight, lots of sketch comedy, and very important conversation. The only way to start your weekend, that Kevin Show.
Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com. 10.4 million people per week helping keep how they think straight and logical and common sense and plain and straightforward. And one of the organizations that I love interacting with is America First Policy Institute, for all that they are doing to put that America First agenda into play. And my next guest has some really unique takes on all of this, because as the chairman of one of the largest Hispanic food companies on the planet, he knows a great deal about how the America First agenda impacts cultures, both here in America, but also beyond our borders. Bob Unanue is the founding member of AFPI, but also chairman of the Hispanic Leadership Coalition, and as I already mentioned, president and CEO of Goya Foods. Bob, it's great to see you again. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be with you, Kevin. Just for clarification, no longer I'm kind of retired from Goya Foods, but working with America First Policy Institute, and not just ACT, which is America Combats Trafficking, but also with the Hispanic Leadership Coalition, reaching out to and champion the Hispanic values and culture in our nation.
Well, I didn't get the retirement part right, but you were there for 45 years. So, I mean, you know, if people still thank you for delicious beans, it's understandable. Well, let's talk about the America Combats Trafficking work that you're involved in, because as we saw for 4 years with the Biden administration in office, there was little to no care given to that issue. And in fact, they didn't really seem to have any care at all that they lost track of 387,000 children. Bob, you and I are both family men. We God-fearing people. We love our families. 387 children that we don't have any idea where they went, even to this day.
Well, Kevin, actually, we do, and the thing is, yes, America is moving away from the family. The family is under attack. God is under attack. We're in a spiritual war. But what actually happened over the last 4 years, and don't take my word for it, take it. Tara Lee Rodas, who was a whistleblower with ORR, Office of Refugee Resettlement, under HHS Javier Becerra and DHS Alejandro Mayorkas. What they did, in effect, Tara Lee said that the U.S. was the middleman in bringing these children in. The children were basically sold or purchased very cheap, sometimes family selling their children, unfortunately, to the cartels. The cartels then, in effect, through NGOs and other people, and going to HHS and ORR, delivering these children. And I believe, and DOJ and Treasury need to get behind and follow the money. But this is the biggest industry in the world, $200 billion. And what was happening was the sale of children. And God's children are not for sale. So the foster system, but what they would do is send us these children to sponsors, 40 children to one addressed. That's not a home, it's a business. So it's like if I were to buy a truck to make deliveries, the truck will cost me $40,000. Then I'm going to use that truck until it's no longer, rolling. And that's what happened with these children. They bought these children. They were vetting them because if you're the government, and I believe that's the way it happened, let's say you want to sell these children. And there are things coming up with DOJ, with that you will see the involvement of the U.S. government and the Mexican government, where we sell the children to sponsors, to different people who will pay money for them, for the use, for sex, for slavery, for body parts, for blood, whatever makes money. And then exploit them, abuse them until they're no longer rolling. And unfortunately, that's the reality. 400,000 children under Javier Becerra. In the first years, it was 85,000 children missing. He says, we have to do a better job. Henry Ford would be embarrassed by the lack of efficiency. Let's bring in more children. And they did. 400,000, who knows how many more. But it's not just children over the border. It's children within our country. Just like President Trump is attacking the drugs coming out of Venezuela or South America, he also wants to attack the drugs on our streets.
Right.
And that's what we have to do with child trafficking. Not just what's coming over the border, and he's done a good job stopping that, but we have to see how we're exploiting our children and fellow human beings in our country. Because we're the biggest consumer of trafficking.
I know that you are dealing with this issue a lot, so it must become somewhat customary to say the words that you just said, but to hear them in the context of what you just said is one of the most frightening realities I think my ears have heard in a long time. And I'm not often surprised by things, but to hear the term buying and selling of children to exploit them for their blood and their bodies and their everything else, this is not what America has ever represented or stood for. So I want to ask a couple of follow-up questions. You say you hope that DOJ and Treasury will follow the money. Do we have any evidence that they are on the trail and that we're going to get some names and some people held accountable for some of this? Because I think at the very least, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have a great deal to answer for in this regard, given the fact that they insisted. It wasn't that they just allowed it. They insisted the policies to be what they were so that you created the atmosphere in which all of this could occur.
Well, again, it's a $200 billion business, and a lot of this is dark money. It's Bitcoin. It's, not just Bitcoin, but all the coins. It's dark money, and it's hidden. I think DOJ recently, I don't have all the facts, but they just came out with some money that went to certain politicians. We can investigate that. But it's too big of a business, an industry, for and what's moving our world today is power and money. And of course, we're moving away from God. We're moving away from family. We're in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th to October 15th. And the Hispanic is the most exploited group. And unfortunately, what we need to do is to follow the values that not only the Hispanics have, but many Americans, that Charlie Kirk had, of the values of God, family, and work. And we're moving away from that. And so, yes, there are, there's a lot of money behind it. To go after it is not a safe or easy task. I work with America First Policy Institute. We have 8 secretaries now in the administration, over 90 people there. Yeah. I want to use our connections with the Pam Bondi, with in Treasury, with Bobby Kennedy Jr. and HHS, who took over for Javier Becerra, who was responsible for moving. Selling these children, the disappearance of 400,000 children or more.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
I've never seen Bob Unanue. I've never seen anyone as thoroughly pathetic at their job than Secretary Mayorkas was. And it wasn't that he was just incompetent. It was that he was incompetent, but that he was arrogant about it. And that he was, he would put a finger in the face of Congress when they would ask him questions, and he would say, you know, he just lied to them often. But when he would get into back and forths, he'd get very, you know, almost like, who are you to question me? And it should be the exact opposite. Our cabinet departments should be seeking to serve the American people, not have the American people serve them. And I think that that is something that we have to change the culture of in Washington if we hope to, because I can't imagine where 400,000 children could be hidden away. And how could we have lost track of them? As a father, this breaks my heart incredibly.
Well, you need to vet those children, the customers, they know who the customers are. Now, what's worse is to have a Javier Becerra and a Mayorkas, who are both Latinos, lord over Hispanics, who are the most abused in this tragedy. But there's many of you. The thing is, we're not valuing life. We're not valuing life starting in the womb. And so if you don't value life, the children become a commodity. And and the money takes over, the power takes over. Let's stay in office. Let's make more money. I'm not saying who took money. That's up to Treasury and DOJ. But you're going to find where $200 billion went, a lot to the cartels, and I think to our government or people, and to the Mexican government and people, but not to the children, not to the families of the children. And again, we need to value life. And what these people did in HHS, DHS, and what Kennedy is fixing and Kristi Noem is fixing is bringing value to these children. That's what ACT does. America Combats Trafficking is say, you are called by God. Each one of you has a name. You've been called by God, and you are valued. And it's too much. We're in the spiritual war. It's hate and destroy versus love and build. We're seeing it in every city, and we're seeing it all over the world. I was just in Spain, and I'm going back tomorrow. You're seeing just a lot of anger and hatred out there. We got to learn to value each other. And I think it starts in the womb. If you don't value life there, you're not going to value it anywhere. And children become, the children, as it says in the Bible, Jesus says, bring these children to me, for these are these are the children that will, that will go to heaven, inherit the kingdom of God. Exactly. Thank you for inherit the kingdom of God. Amen to that.
Well, and that's what we want to be supportive of. If people are watching or listening right now, Bob, how can they get involved with ACT? Where do they go? How do they sign up? What can they contribute to? What are you looking for from people that are watching and listening right now?
Well, I've been asked that a lot, and America First Policy Institute is a great organization. They want to contribute to that. But what we want to do is to call to action the faith community, people, government officials, to lend a hand, to take care of a child, to take care of we got to build this. But America First Policy Institute is an organization that is born 4 years ago, and is we have these,
and through them they can connect to ACT.
That's right. ACT is part of that America First initiative, and
That website's easy. It's afpi.org, friends. Those of you watching and listening, you want to get more involved. America First Policy Institute. We talk to AFPI folks every single week because we believe in what they're doing. afpi.org, afpi.org. And Bob, thank you for all that you're doing. I'm sorry that you're no longer part of the Goya Bean family because we happen to really love all the stuff that you make in the McCullough house. But I am so thankful that God has you where you are and what you're doing, because these are really the issues of our time.
Thank you. I'm still an owner, but I'm just not actively involved in that. But it's we as a country, I think we're in a position, and you see what happened with Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
All these chapters that are growing up, the young are revolting against this hatred and destruction, loving and building. I think we have in our hands the future of this country, of our world, and we can be an example, not just here, but around the world, that we can bring God back.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square, That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related to the show, podcasts, social media, etc. You can find it all in one spot. Billy Atwell is the new AFPI Chief Communications and Marketing Officer, and it's the first time for him to join us here at That Kevin Show. Billy, it's good to have you. Thanks for coming on.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
We believe in America First, and specifically, we believe in AFPI at this microphone in large measure because of the integrity of all of the people that you have assembled in this incredible organization and what it has really accomplished, mostly in the previous Trump administration, and now as we are pushing forward on America First going forward. But when we lost Charlie Kirk, and we at Salem feel that pain very deeply, he was our largest show between his podcast and his radio audience. He had the largest combined audience of all of our hosts. We know that he and others like him have been the driving mouthpiece for the America First agenda, in some ways much more so than institutions. And I'm curious, as you guys are looking to the future, what are you kind of realizing in his absence, how it's going to impact the equation? Because you got to have people articulating the ideas in the mainstream almost every single day to keep the reality of what America First is all about.
Yeah, it was devastating to lose Charlie for, spiritual reasons above all. He was killed for what he believed, but he wasn't really just killed for what he believed. He was killed because people were listening.
Right.
And that drove people nuts, especially if they're socialists and they're used to having a tight grip on power that usually comes at the end of a sword or a gun. And Charlie was the best of us. On the America First movement, the conservative movement, Charlie was the best because he didn't just have good ideas and share them winsomely and persuasively and use reason and statistics wherever he had them. He gave the microphone to the other side, said, give me your best idea and we'll debate that. And so he would go on campuses, and it would be think about that. He was only 31 when he was killed. Think about when he was 26, 27, 28, and 30 doing this and debating college professors who had been doing this for longer than he was alive. But the difference was this: they were used to an echo chamber. They were used to having nobody push back, sitting in front of a classroom full of students who have to listen, and they're not going to object because they want good grades, right? I remember being in that position in college as well. But Charlie was the best of us. He illustrated what we need most. And so without him now, we have to say, what does the movement do? I think there's a couple of things. One, he was big on the fact that we need to be in partnership with one another. Conservative groups cannot be pointing at each other, because if you are, you're not pointing at the bad ideas and exposing them the way that he did. So right. I think we're seeing a lot of coalescing spiritually. We've seen a ton of outpouring of prayer, but we're even seeing the organizations come together and say, we're all in this together. Like we need to champion these ideas because we're seeing what happens when bad ideas start to lead, especially with young people who Charlie was so passionate about. When bad ideas lead, the country can crumble. And so we know that we should be betting on America, as Charlie did. But how we do that, it has to be in partnership.
Yeah. He also warned that if we're not smart about our next steps, that the left will win. And I think all you have to do is be in my city and listen to the day-to-day jabberwocky about Mamdani and what the future of New York City might look like to come to the understanding that he wasn't wrong. There's nothing that's left in a vacuum. Something will come in and fill the vacuum quickly when an emptied space opens up.
You're absolutely right. I was actually listening. My social media feeds are filled with Charlie Kirk right now. The algorithms know what I'm interested in.
I can't get a post that doesn't have a minute.
I know. We're privileged to have so much content from him. But I was watching an interview with Tucker Carlson on Tucker's new show, and they were talking about the fact that young people want to start families and are having a hard time with that. They want to pay off their student loans, and when they have a family, be able to send their kids to good schools and pay for college without tremendous amounts of debt, because we've seen what student loans have done. And they want to be able to buy a home. But all of that has changed. 20 years ago, the average first-time home buyer was 32 years old. Today, it's 38 years old. That's a big shift. In that same span of time, house prices on average have doubled, adjusted for inflation, doubled. That's wild. So when you have well-adjusted, good kids looking to socialists as having some of the answers potentially, it's because they're struggling. Right. And we need to see that struggle and say, what are our answers? Again, Charlie was about having good ideas and letting those ideas lead. What are the answers that we've got for fixing the economy so that they can start families, pay off their own student loans, get their kids into good schools, and buy a home? These are foundational values of the American vision and the American system.
Well, and I would argue that those things that you mentioned aren't just values; those are visions that people can take out of the values of get married, have lots of kids, have more kids than you can afford, is what Charlie would say. And, press forward. You can't practice the ideas without practical avenues of action and behavior able to be taken. And what's really messed up about New York is that you have, in essence now, with Mayor Adams out of the reelect, you've basically got an argument that goes, you have to elect the least of the worst evils to avoid having the worst of the worst evils. And it's so backwards from where the country really should be in terms of being able to push for the very best ideas. But that is, I think, attributable to the rot and decay of single party control for a very long time that just let its cancer run amok. And we're literally self-cannibalizing the most important city maybe on planet Earth because of it.
Yes, and we have the federalist system for a reason, right? You want to be able to point to cities that have done things differently and say, what did they do that New York's not doing? We're seeing the economic demise of California, particularly like San Francisco and LA. And what do they have? They have violence in the streets. All summer we were dealing with the No Kings protests. We're seeing people throw bricks at ICE officers. And you say, okay, how do you get moral and economic decay? Well, you have it when you champion things like socialism, where you take people's rights, you take their freedoms, and you give them to government.
A moral system is saying that morality doesn't exist. If morality doesn't exist, then the founders were all on crack cocaine, because the whole system was built on good and evil, God, Satan, the difference between the two, and doing what we can in this time and life that we have to advance the good.
Right. Because if you take God out of the equation, the only power left is government. And so government becomes the God of the people. And obviously, conservatism, we reject that.
Billy Atwell, Chief Communications and Marketing Officer at AFPI, thanks for coming to see us, and come back and see us again.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming back from Times Square. Don't go away.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Last week, Jimmy Kimmel Live was suspended, but I got it back because I have two great negotiators on my team. Even though I don't remember saying the Charlie Kirk shooter is a MAGA Republican, I promise from now on I'll try to be less divisive politically. Guillermo, how dumb is a MAGA Republican?
Hey, I don't know him, me. How dumb is a MAGA Republican?
MAGA Republicans are so dumb, they think Shark Week is about Kevin O'Leary.
All right, stop the show, Jimmy. We have to take you off the air again.
Seriously? You're attacking my free speech again?
Relax, Jimmy. It's not what you think. Let's just talk in my office.
Are you seriously suspending my show again?
Jim, 6.5 million people tuned in to watch your show tonight. Most of them were protesters who'd never seen your show before. Normally, I'd say it's great, but I'm worried they'll regret getting your show back on TV when they realize you're actually pretty annoying.
Wait, you're saying I'm not funny? MAGA Republicans are so dumb they think they can climb Mountain Dew.
It's been done, Jim. For the last 10 years, every late-night host and liberal comedian have said Republicans are dumb and Trump is Satan or whatever. Unless you're a college student or a millennial with low bone density, it's pretty lame.
Oh yeah? MAGA Republicans are so dumb they think an oven is called a macrowave.
Jim, I pulled your show off the air tonight because I think it's causing autism.
Really?
For now, the government is blaming Tylenol, but people take it when they get a headache, and they get a headache watching your show. That's why you need to get funny before they figure it out.
I don't know if I can.
If you want to keep your show, Jim, you don't have a choice.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, Meaghan Mobbs from the Independent Women's Forum, West Point graduate, and her opinion on the peace process. Sketch comedy from the Babylon Bee and a cartoon from Al Berry. And Max McNown returns to the new music spotlight. And now from Times Square, where Congress is all out of money, but somehow still found $8 billion for Sombrero Saturday decorations and a margarita machine, here's the Kevin!
Simon Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. President Donald Trump is threatening massive tariffs again on China, saying he sees no reason to meet with President Xi, which is fair. Xi never picks up the check anyway. Trump says if China doesn't play nice, they'll, quote, pay through the nose. Beijing responded by noting they already make all the noses, so they're just fine. In New York, Letitia James, the state's attorney general and part-time Trump stalker, is now facing federal bank fraud charges herself. Her critics say her own words came back to haunt her, which is ironic since most of her sentences start with, "I'm above the law." In global virtue news, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader, despite calls for Donald Trump to receive it. Nobel officials said Trump's peace deal in Gaza was nice and all, but we're saving the medal for someone who didn't tweet about it. Trump responded by announcing he's creating his own, much bigger, much better, much more, way better Peace Prize. Back home, a Rutgers professor is calling for Turning Point USA to be banned from campus, citing dangerous ideas because nothing terrifies academia like free speech and a folding table in the student union. The petition reportedly got 42 signatures, 39 of which were all duplicates of the same sociology major. Meanwhile, retired CBS anchor Dan Rather called it a dark day for journalism after the network hired Barry Weiss, which is rich coming from a man who forged memos about George W. Bush's military record. On the sports desk, Giants QB Jackson Dart got a big win this week, and his mom, Kara Dart, praised his dominant performance. She told reporters, "I knew he'd make it in the NFL when he started calling audibles at the dinner table. Analysts say if he keeps playing like this, the Giants might even let fans hope again, even briefly." And finally, Travis Kelce admitted he's terrified of letting his dad hear Taylor Swift's new lyrics about their relationship. His sister-in-law, Kylie Kelce, responded by saying, "Don't worry, after last week's game, your dad's already heard worse." Sources close to the couple say Taylor's next single might be called 50 Shades of Tight End. For a Simon Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
What is this? Are you a capitalist spy?
Ew, no. I'm Brinley. I'm a progressive from the future. My pronouns are she, her.
Pronouns?
Wait, you're not a transphobe, are you?
I don't think so. I don't even think that's a word yet.
Oh, good. I can't talk to you if you're a TERF. Anyway, I came here to see how great communism is. I'm from the year 2025, which is 400 or 500 years from now.
2025. By then, our worldwide plan for communist rule will have come to fruition, no doubt.
Well, communism is making great progress in American colleges. Pretty much every college student is a raging communist. But unfortunately, most Americans still consider communism to be bad.
Yet.
I know, right? Actually, I came here for inspo. My history professor told me what an amazing utopia Soviet Russia was, and I had to see for myself. And to get some more great ideas for policies to implement back in America. I have so many questions.
Okay then, shoot. No. Not you. Her. Shoot with your questions.
Okay. So, do Soviets have universal health care?
In a manner of speaking.
Do Soviets have affordable housing?
People are assigned to homes. In a manner of speaking.
Cool. Do you guys use sustainable green energy?
We have lots of power outages. Not in a manner of speaking, literally. Like lots of them.
Well, that's fire. By the way, what's that shovel for?
That is a surprise tool that will help us later. Young lady, would you like me to show you our great Soviet paradise?
Bet.
This is one of our great accomplishments. This labor camp provides free jobs to millions of underprivileged comrades.
Amazing. From each accordion his ability to each accordion his need.
You just say accordion.
So what kind of jobs are they doing?
They break rocks for 16 hours a day.
For a good, decent living wage, right?
For the love of their country.
Oh. Well, at least they don't have to make any Zoom calls, I guess.
Next! This is one of our many perfect government-run grocery stores. No one goes hungry here in Mother Russia.
Nice.
The government controls all the means of production and distribution.
That's amazing. There's this candidate for mayor in New York City back in my time proposing government-run grocery stores. I'm excited to see one of the first ones here. Say, why are people lined up like that?
Next! Well, now you see the glory of our wonderful Soviet paradise. In fact, I have 100% approval rating.
Are you sure it's 100%? I saw a political dissident out there with the protest sign.
As I was saying, I have 100% approval rating. Now, about your job assignment. In Soviet Russia, everyone has a job.
I love it. Equity. Can I please be a salsa instructor? Oh, or I could take a gap year and finally learn how to play the oboe. lifelong dream. Or I'll finally have time to work on my Bridgerton fan art. You know, something that's really mine.
Mine. Mine. Yes. We'll find something along those lines for you.
This is almost as bad as making Zoom calls.
Back to work!
I love communism.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related to the show. Social media, podcasts, videos, highlights, columns. You want it, it's there. We never put it behind a paywall. It's all for free. If you want to email me, you can do that through there as well. We are continuing on in the discussion about what the news of this week really lends itself to. And even as we move through these immediate days following the announcement, but not yet return of the hostages and kind of that space, I want to make sure that we're thinking clearly about that. And that's why I've invited Meaghan Mobbs back to be with us from the Independent Women's Forum, one of our favorites. And she helps us think clearly on all this as a West Point graduate, lifelong lover of the country, and someone who wants to really see America excel. Meaghan, it's always good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Kevin, thank you so much for having me. I love being on your show, so it's a pleasure to be back.
Well, we love having you. I want to take you back to Wednesday night when the news first broke. What was your take? It felt like, because sometimes the president will put something up on Truth, and you hope and you pray and you feel that it's going to like be everything that he says. Sometimes many times it is, most times it is. Every now and then it's not. And I just had a little pause in my gut going, I don't. Well, okay, maybe. What was your thought?
So at first, extraordinarily celebratory. I mean, to your point, often what the president says is going to happen is exactly what happens. And so I think my initial reaction was, oh my gosh, this is a major breakthrough. Huge. The president is getting it done. This is a remarkable thing. Ever since the horrific events on October 7th, 2 years ago, right, one of the biggest things has been pushing for the release of all of the hostages dead and alive. And so for that to happen and for there to be a plan for that is an extraordinary achievement for the president and his entire team who helped get to this point. And then, as you said, a little bit of follow-on as, and Hamas is exactly who they say they are, which is a terrorist organization hell-bent on the destruction of Israel. And so I always have a little bit of concern when dealing with bad actors like that.
Meaning that even if they enter into an agreement, it's only what percentage possible of being held true?
Exactly. And I do think the hostage is going to happen. I think it's going to happen for a variety of reasons. I think Hamas has effectively calculated this is in the best interest for them, quite frankly, to release the hostages. I think it's going to be in the next steps of that broader 20-point plan that the president put forward, which is quite comprehensive, agreed to by many, many nations. The Middle East.
You like the 20-point plan.
Partners.
We didn't talk after the plan came out, but you liked that.
I did like the plan. I think it just shows balance. It shows a balance in the region. You have extensive buy-in from other Middle Eastern nations, from Europe. I think it demonstrates clear-eyed leadership about addressing many of the challenges. And like we're talking about right now, I think Hamas is going to be willing to agree to a point. And I think what I want the president to do and what I'm hoping for is he said, this is a take it or leave it deal. You either take all of this or you take none of it. And if you do not, we're going to aggressively push forward and make your life very, very, very difficult. And so I'm remaining hopeful and optimistic that the hostage release is that first point of that 20-point plan, but the rest have to happen. That next step, the demilitarization, is going to be the most challenging. And I hope that we demonstrate peace through strength by holding Hamas accountable to that.
I kind of have this feeling, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a military guy. My brother-in-law is, but I've talked with a lot of special forces. I've talked with a lot of military lower ranked fellas. I've talked to a lot of admirals and generals on the show. So it's not that I'm completely, non-conversant with some of this stuff, but it seems to me that if you get the hostages out safely and relocated, that the the ability to lean in and say the or else part becomes a much more effective piece of the tool. You can't say or else if there are live hostages in the midst of everything without having to, worry about the damage that does to those hostages and to the families that are counting on you to get them out. A couple of Americans still among them, by the way. But once you have them gone, doesn't the full weight of all the power and might of Israel and the U.S. come down on Hamas? And it's like, it is now or nothing. And you will not survive this if you choose not to go forward.
I think that's exactly right. I think it does give a lot more operating space, operating capability to both Israel and the U.S. to really press their advantage, like you're saying. I think that what is one of the most remarkable things about this effort in Gaza, in particular to eradicate Hamas, has been the concentrated effort by Israel and the U.S. to minimize that collateral damage, because they have tried extraordinarily hard to make sure that they're only striking. And of course,
they've gotten zero credit for it either. Worldwide, nobody has said, hey, good job. Yeah. They're all like, exactly. You're Satan. But they have done they're the only people, they and us during Operation Iraqi Freedom are the only people that have ever dropped pamphlets and said, get out of the way, we're coming in. And I think in warfare, going back to, who knows when, that's never been done. So how could anybody say that they're inhumane in terms of, affecting their response?
I find it very shocking. I mean, war is horrible. There's always going to be collateral damage. I think that we have to be wide-eyed about all of that and assessing the risks that exist. But to your point, Israel and the U.S. are extraordinary at trying to minimize that to the best of their ability. It's not just been leaflet dropping. They've done targeted push texting, messaging, all of these different pieces. They've also done roof knocking techniques by which they're saying, this building is going to be targeted if you do not evacuate if you're a civilian. And what we're seeing is Hamas using civilians as those shields. So even though Israel is doing everything in their power to make sure they're minimizing, Hamas doesn't care. And they're obviously using it for their own PR campaign to say, to your point earlier, Israel is Satan, the West is Satan. But you're right, they don't get enough credit for how hard Israel is not getting enough credit for how much they've tried to minimize that collateral damage.
Do you sense that there will be more fighting after the hostages are released?
My hope is that, again, the president aggressively pushes this 20-point plan, that he uses this as the kind of catalyst to say, all right, we've got this first part done, and allegedly he's traveling to the Middle East for all of this, that he then says, all right, and now the follow-on is all of these other pieces, and the fighting does stop. I mean, the president has, repeatedly touted his peacemaking ability. He is the right person. But as you and I both know, you only achieve peace through strength. So my hope is that if Hamas begins to waver, the president really does just push forward and say, absolutely not, we're agreeing to all of these points.
I've seen a couple of articles that talk about the Qataris and how they have kind of played both sides of this coin. There were a lot of, it was a multilateral involvement by a lot of nations. How significant do you think it was that all those other Arab states came to the table?
I think it's been critically important. I mean, there are certainly, I think, some concerns there for me for a variety of reasons, right? The Qataris have been always played both sides. Let's not fool ourselves there. And actually, I think one of the unsung heroes amidst all of this, outside of the president, is Jared Kushner, who knows the region extraordinarily well. He was the architect of the Abraham Accords under the president in the first Trump administration. And I think it's really has been his effort to bring all of these key stakeholders to the table and say, where are your true red limits or red lines? What can we actually do? And so I think that we had to have the Middle Eastern nations on board, and having them present has allowed for this kind of breakthrough that we're seeing now.
I think that, and stopping the cash flow from Iran, which was what was giving everything the life source that it was having anyway.
Absolutely.
Hamas is not going to be allowed to stay in Gaza. Where do these people go?
So that's part of the 20-point plan, right? That there was going to be some agreement with some of the Arab states. They would take in some of these former Hamas fighters, and that they would be allowed to leave if they laid down arms and basically seek asylum at some of these other Middle Eastern nations. And so my assumption is they're going to be going to a variety of places. Again, I do have some, a little bit of grave concern there, that the reality is once you are radicalized, de-radicalization is extraordinarily difficult from an ideological perspective. So my hope is that we're thinking through, if they are allowed to be granted asylum,
McCullough.
Welcome back. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. We are talking with the Independent Women's Forum every single week on this platform because I believe in everything that they do. And I believe that they are one of those voices that, you know, they're not replicated anywhere else. If you see a, quote, woman's perspective on mainstream news outlets, it is always of the far leftist, most feminized in the most common and modern stage of the word, not in the 1920 sense, but like the 1960s and 70s sense. And it will very seldom ever reflect what the majority of women in America think, which are people that grow up and have families and love their children and pay their taxes. And a lot of them go to church, and there's just a whole different frame of mind. And Meaghan Mobbs is back with us from Independent Women's Forum. And Meaghan, you've just released this report called Women and the West. What's that all about?
Yeah. So I'm so excited about this report, Kevin. Thank you so much for bringing it up. It has been a long effort for us really to bring this to the forefold. To your point earlier, what we are basically saying is that women and girls have always been the canary in the coal mine for civilization, and that the fate of women has always foretold the fate of nations. And when women are safe, societies prosper. When they are silenced, erased, or afraid to speak, the foundations of civilization begin to crack. And so what we're really looking at is some of the things that, you know, we've talked about on the show before, Kevin, about the erasure of biological reality of women, that we've allowed that to happen here in the West. Also looking at things like free speech violations in the UK, the gang grooming scandal, rape scandals that we saw in England. All of those pieces are demonstrating that the West has to reconcile with the fact that we are allowing true liberal values, and by that I mean sovereignty, free speech, free expression, to erode in the sake of tolerance. And we are becoming over tolerant or compassion untethered for reason in our policy making. And as a result, women and girls are suffering quite greatly.
Well, and that is all going on concurrently. But then in the last 4 years, you had this like ratcheted up effort to replace women with men.
Men.
Like,
yep, absolutely.
It's like we were back to like the really old arguments in a very perverted kind of weird new way, but it was the same argument. It was like, you know, okay, women, you take the seat at the back of the bus. We're going to let the men who want to pretend like they're women now have your seat. And I did not see any of these mainline feminist groups like raising their hand saying, hey, come on, let's not do this. We just, you know, we've been working on this for years.
Right. Except for independent women. We were out there
guys,
very
yes.
aggressively saying women are women, men are men. And this is part of what I was saying earlier, that effectively the West has tried to commit suicide internally by all of these policies, by denying reality that was right before us. And let's be clear, liberal democracy was never meant to be a suicide pact. Its power lies not in boundless acceptance, but in disciplined freedom, acknowledging truth for what it was or what it is, and holding that with moral clarity. And unfortunately, like you said, especially the last 4 years, we forgot that. We were letting crazy things happen. You know, men calling themselves women, competing both in sports, locker rooms, sororities, just a kind of this boundless acceptance while we were erasing women and girls. And that, unfortunately, I think is demonstrative of the fact that we've allowed decay to set in here in the West.
Now, does this apply to the entirety of the West? Because Europe was on a path that seemed like they were just as aggressive about this, but at least with some of the transgender stuff in kids, they started curtailing it pretty aggressively a couple of years, you know, like maybe 3 years ago. And now they don't even offer, you know, a lot of the trans stuff via the health services and stuff that they had offered before because of the cost and of the damage it was doing.
So that's true. So I would say in some countries in Europe, that is true regarding transitioning of minors, where I think that the Western Europeans need to be very, very careful when we talk about this in the report, is the kind of open borders, unfettered migration, and lack of forced assimilation of those migrants into their culture. And we see it in Sweden, where nearly 2/3 of convicted rapists are foreign born, but yet the public officials are messaging something quite different. We see the rise of anti-Semitism in many of these places. We're seeing it in the UK, in Germany, in France, and also crackdowns on free speech in places like the UK. If you come out and say a woman is a woman and a man is a man.
Well, and they don't even allow things like people who just want to pray in front of an abortion clinic by themselves quietly to be there either.
That's exactly right.
As do you give any type of forecast of what the outlook is or steps that need to be taken specifically here in the West in these last 20 seconds?
So we do. So we say that go back to true liberal values, defending free speech, not because it's pleasant, because it's necessary, confronting illiberal ideologies with aggression and without apology, and rejecting moral relativism and saying it's okay. West is best, and we should be embracing that. We are the greatest country on earth, and that is okay to say.
Love that. By the way, my producers have told me that I've referred to you as Meaghan Mobbs something like 4 times in today's interview. And her name is Meaghan Mobbs. And I knew that, and I don't know why.
Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Happy weekend. You know, it's funny because that Life of the Showgirl thing from that Taylor Swift person came out, I told you about. Kind of a big deal. Broke every streaming record Spotify ever had, will ever have. Talk to the Swifties. It's like every time she does anything, it's like the most important thing ever. And I know because there's a couple of them in my house, so I live with this all the time. I was just thinking, you know, we talk about the important stuff, and I mentioned this in the opening to the show today. And a lot of people think that the important stuff is what I can buy or what I can do, how famous I can become, how much power I can accumulate. If you're Andrew Cuomo, if you're Donald Trump, you wake up every day thinking about how can I make the country better. There's things that go through our heads. And yes, on the clean version of Taylor Swift's album, because there's 2 versions, there's the explicit, which is too mature for me to listen to, and there's the clean version, and I prefer the clean version. But the song Wish List, I love this song. This song is about her wanting family, about her wanting children, about how, as 2 very famous celebrities, she just wants to tell the world, just leave us alone. Let us raise our kids. Let us build the family that we've dreamed of having since we were younger, etc. And I value that. I think that's tremendous. And I know that she and Charlie Kirk didn't always see eye to eye. I know that Charlie Kirk's pals were often very rude to Taylor Swift. I will say I don't think Charlie participated in that. But it's interesting to see this because she's being noted for saying that traditional marriage, she wants to get married, which she has the ring. She wants to have more kids than she can afford, to quote Charlie. And she already has like 4 or 5 mortgages. So she's checked all the boxes at this point in time, if those goals stay her goals. But I was also listening this week to Brandon Lake's album. And he's got a few really good songs on there. I Know a Name. He does that with CeCe Winans. He does the duet with Jelly Roll, the Hard Knock Hallelujah, or whatever that's called. And he does this other song called For Me and My Home. And it's kind of a play on the scriptural reference, for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. But he actually talks about wanting his kids to know God personally and to come into that one-to-one relationship with God that Jesus Christ offers. And I thought both of these songs, her Wish List song and his Me and My Home song, they both hit on very important themes. And I would like more of these kinds of songs written and produced and put out there, because they esteem the value that we hold. And the values that we hold at this microphone of recent years has been to help mothers who have been enslaved to return home. And in recent years, we've actually been able to help them do that with Christian Solidarity International. We're talking about the Slave Liberation Program. By the way, I came to you last week and I said, we're not tracking very well. We want to get to 208 slaves freed by the end of the year. We were only at 72. 7 of you stepped up and said, we're going to do a slave each. Thank you. because we're just about to break 80 slaves liberated for the year. That's still a long way from 208, but friends, every life we liberate, every woman that we free, it gets us closer. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's something we've done for a number of years, but for a one-time gift of $250, you will not only help that slave come to liberation, but then be given everything that they need to start their life over again when they come out of slavery. So the idea here that these slaves were taken during the Sudan Civil War, the world powers settled the war, gave the two different, the Muslim fraction and the Christian fraction their land, and said you can have your own governments in your own place, but they didn't do anything with the people that had been taken slave, particularly the women. Many of them taken at just 5, 6, 7 years of age, being given to cruel taskmasters that they then served for the next 10, 12, 15, in some cases 20 years. Now they have the ability to be freed. Christian Solidarity International, my partner, is guaranteeing their freedom and getting them back to South Sudan safely. They're not being re-enslaved or recaptured or anything like that. There's no recidivism. But they're just being given everything that they've missed out on in life. And so that bag of hope that the $250 will supply them will give them their food, their crops for future food, the utensils they need, the blankets and tarps and things like that to help protect them from weather. It gives them a little she-goat that helps them produce a micro-enterprise for their life. And we're getting their children released now too. Some of in the past, they weren't always allowed to take their kids with them. But in slavery, if a slave master rapes you, oftentimes you end up pregnant. And these slave moms have loved their mom. And I have to think, going back to the Taylor Swift thing, it's not that much different. Mothers have a desire to love children, and it's a healthy and good thing. So your $250 will liberate a slave for sure. It may also liberate the child simultaneously if we are able to do that, if they have one, etc. But we need your help. There's 208 names on the list. We're just coming on to name 80 for the year, and that means we have 129 to go or something like that. So can you please consider helping us? 800 342-1010, 888-342-1010. A $250 one-time gift will liberate one of those slaves. And then they're not just turned loose. Like, they have a recovery camp that they get to go to, and they get to be made whole again. They get to talk. They haven't been allowed to talk in some of these households for the whole time they've been enslaved. But they get to tell their story. They get to see other slaves that have come out. If they don't have a specific home to return to, there's a community that they are invited to be part of. It is a beautiful thing. It is a wonderful thing. Please go to bringherhome.org, and see with your own eyes what they're doing. Bringherhome.org. It'll tell you everything that you need to know about the program, but bringherhome.org will make that difference. 888-342-1010 will get that slave liberated and on her way to freedom. And before Christmas, we want to make sure we get them all. Stay with us. It's Kevin McCullough. Come right back.
Ready or not, we'll be right back.